Hi, guys. Welcome to today's episode. This is kind of a special episode. I don't even know if I want to call it a blockchain banter. I think it is, but it's really kind of more a Bancor Cody celebration, getting to know Carbon DeFi. And I've got a wonderful group of guys here with me today to really kind of dive into what it is we're going to be looking at, what it is that Bancor has brought over to Cody. And I think best way to start is with some introductions. Maybe we'll just go straight down the line. Glenn, you want to start us off?
Yes, I'll go ahead. Thanks for hosting this call. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm with Bancor on the BizDev side. Been with the project since at least 2020. Joined officially as a contributor in early 2023. Excited to be here with the Cody folks. Excited for what they're building. Essentially on the confidentiality side. I think there's a lot of useful applications that will come out of this, and looking to contribute to those efforts as well from our end.
Thanks, Glenn. Tracer, I think everybody might know you now in the Cody community, right? But we're gonna have you intro yourself anyway. I don't know how often you do it on your own calls. So welcome to the other side.
Yeah, no kidding. This is weird, but I've been part of the community since 2019, running on testnet, mainnet for a few years now. Recently joined the ambassadors program and try to get involved with every live stream I can within the Cody community and the official socials. So thanks, Jen, for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling this will be the first of many, so I look forward to it. Soren, can I pass it over to you? I think you might have gone out of order. I switched the screen a little bit, so sorry.
No problem, Jen. You certainly can. My name is Soren. I'm a Cody ambassador. I've been with the project since 2019. I get involved on a daily basis along with Tracer on the Cody Confidential weekly meetup and our Telegram group, and do a bit of business development for Cody as well in my ambassador role.
Perfect. Thank you. It's great to see familiar faces after Bangkok, you being one of them. So happy you were able to join us. Minnesota, this is the first time we've connected. Welcome to the call and thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks, Jen. Been in blockchain, I think like a lot of people, since 2020. First time with Cody, 2020 as well. Support a lot of different projects. Cody, I really like the community. I like the fundamentals. Even though they pivoted, I still like the team. Really new to this whole DeFi space. I'm more of a go to work kind of guy. Cash the check, put it in the bank, spend the money. DeFi is kind of unique in that way, as it's a little bit different. You got to be more active. So I'm looking to learn.
That's awesome.
Going to work here, we call that mining fiat, right, Jem?
Yeah, it's mining fiat. Mining fiat.
Well, I'm glad to have you here as kind of like a new DeFi user, because it brings a lot to the table, and sometimes we don't realize after being in the space for 5 years, and especially like I know I have to catch myself being in DeFi for 5 years. I don't realize, that I have to take a few steps back and really bring it back to the step one, the step two, and kind of the intro to it all. So I'm really glad that you're here and looking forward to, all of your questions, and encourage you to ask them throughout the call. Mark retweeted you. Isn't that special? We'll give Mark a special shout out after.
As a man crush.
It's his man crush. Let's not take the spotlight off of Ship, though. We're going to pass it over to Ship, and then we'll bring it back to Mark to make Tracer happy. Ship, let's hear about you, please.
Hey, how you doing? Good to be here. Yes, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm hoping most people on the Cody community side do. I used to be Tracer's best friend until Mark entered the picture, and I was very quickly pushed to the curb. But I've been in the Cody community for about 4 years. I'm very much an ex-Web2 person, but I've had a long-standing affinity with Cody, have kind of stayed close to them over the years. I hope to have become a cornerstone of the community over that 4-year period in which I followed all things Cody. And then was slowly integrated into the team through like the ambassador program, by helping to lead on some social channels, and obviously working with Tracer on a number of like enablement initiatives targeted at the community. and then more recently joined Coty's core team. So I'm now a business development manager at Coty, and kind of doing my bit to take our brand new fledgling ecosystem to new heights. So hello.
Well, it's great to have you, and it's always nice to see when you start as a community member and then become an actual contributor. I think that has been a lot of the growth for a lot of different projects. I think that's how Glenn and I both started out as well. So we're all in the same club here. Okay, Glenn, I was hoping that maybe you wouldn't mind sharing your screen for us. And we're really just kind of going to look at first, like what Carbon DeFi actually is. For anybody who is familiar with DeFi or, Minnesota, even if you have purchased a token before, right? You've used an AMM, you've swapped one asset for another, right? One token for another. Carbon is a little bit different for a few reasons. If you're not familiar, for anybody on the call who's not familiar, Bancor is like definite DeFi OG. They invented the constant product AMM back in 2017. This is what a lot of users are familiar with. It was popularized like Uni V2 style. Then in 2020, they invented concentrated liquidity. So if you've provided, concentrated liquidity position or created one at all, this is also a Bancor invention. In 2022, Bancor really went back to the drawing board and said, okay, what do users need? What can they really benefit from? What are the pitfalls? What has surfaced in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years with these previous designs that we can go ahead and recreate from the ground up and offer solutions to these issues. And this is where Carbon DeFi comes in. So Glenn is showing you now, and again, you guys, please don't be shy, interrupt me. Glenn, maybe you could swap these. I know maybe you could do G Cody, buy or sell G Cody with Cody. Can you swap that for me? I know it's just simple. I was talking to, I think, Soren, you were telling me that some of the guys were asking, or some of the community members were asking, how you would go about buying G Cody, right? So we're going to show you exactly how you could do that.
Yeah. There's actually 2 questions there, Jen.
Yeah.
I think it's useful for the community to know that there is a platform on the Cody network where they can buy G Cody. The second question is, it seems that it's got quite low liquidity, which is a common issue with G Cody. And I think people, I certainly would like to understand how do we how do we go about that? How do we fix that?
Yeah.
Are there any options here?
Well, a lot of AMMs, like Carbon DeFi isn't exactly an AMM. It's definitely a decentralized exchange, right? But a lot of AMMs rely on a specific, like the specific depth of a pool, right? So this is when slippage and things come into play. What Carbon DeFi is more of an order book style. So if you look at the UI, if you look at the screen, you can see that Glenn has chosen. Glenn, can you Command+, can you zoom into that a little bit for us by chance?
Zoom in into the screen.
Yeah, do you mind?
Is that better?
Perfect. Yeah, that's a little bit better for sure. So you see, you choose your 2 tokens. You want to buy or sell G Cody with Cody. So you're choosing your 2 tokens. Your trading strategy, don't be intimidated. I've heard trading strategy, the word strategy is intimidating. It's anytime you go into swapping a token, you have a strategy in mind, right? So what Glenn is on right now is limit and range. He has a simple limit order set up. He's looking to sell. Switch that over to buy for me, Glenn. You mind?
Yeah.
So you can sell or you can buy G Cody using Cody. So this is what a user would go in and do. If they're looking to buy G Cody, they have Cody. This is exactly what they're doing. They're setting up their tokens. They're choosing limit. They're going to buy. A limit order, for anybody who's not familiar, you are naming a specific price that you want to buy or sell your token at. So now we can see what the market price is. On the chart to the right, the white is the market price. This is, what are we at right now? 23 something, right? About 23 cents?
No,
So
that's wrong. So this is 0.23.
I'm
This
sorry,
is denominated in Cody, not in dollars.
You're right. Okay, we're denominating in Cody. Glenn, if you notice, he just dragged that green, section there on the chart. This is your buy price. So you can either name it by dragging where you want to do it. You can say, okay, I think it's going to go down to the bottom of where it was before. I'm going to try to buy down here. Or you could just type in whatever price you want to. Or now, recently, we added the ability to choose, 0.1% below market price, 1%, 5%. So you are naming your price. Mark Tracer has previously compared Carbon DeFi to eBay. And it makes so much sense when you think about eBay. You're basically saying, I have this and I want to sell it. You're offering this to the market. That's what you're doing when you're selling something. When you're buying it, you're just saying, look, this is what I want to buy. This is the price I'm offering. Does anybody want to sell it to me? That's what this is right here. Now, all Glenn would do now to create this buy order is fund it with however much Cody he wanted to, and then create his strategy. So now you're basically putting this offer out there to the market. I want to buy G Cody at this price. Anybody want to sell it to me? Great. Now you don't need somebody to come in and actually sell it to you. If they have a sell order created on Carbon DeFi, the infrastructure that we have created to fill these orders or to do like an order to order sort of fulfillment, we'll search all of the orders on Carbon and it'll say, okay, there's a sell order at this price, there's a buy order at this price. Now we're going to match them and we're going to fill both of these orders using these two users. So after this point, if that liquidity is available, Soren, then it will match it and it'll automatically fill those orders. Does that make sense?
Where does the liquidity come from, Jen?
From other users. So it's truly a peer-to-peer sort of protocol. The same way the liquidity comes in from, like on an AMM, right? That comes in from liquidity providers. This is another way of providing liquidity, only it's like true market making. You are choosing the exact price that you want to buy or sell. If you're selling, you are providing liquidity to the market, only you have much more control over what prices you're actually providing your liquidity at.
Is it locked in? Is it locked up, or can you cancel it?
Oh, you can cancel it. Actually, you can cancel it, but you can do more with it, right? So rather than just cancel it, say I want to go in, I'm like, okay, I set my buy order at this price. Now, I don't know, market's not looking so great or market's looking fantastic. I'm really not sure my buy order is going to be filled. I want to go back in and edit my price. You don't have to cancel it, withdraw your funds, recreate your strategy. Instead, there's an option once your strategy is created to edit. You can edit your funds, you can edit your prices. So you can go in, you have much more flexibility as well. So no, you're not locked in, centralized exchange, you have to cancel and kind of recreate. This is much more flexible. Any other questions before we kind of go on? Soren, I see you thinking, go ahead.
Yeah, no. The question is, say I have a whole bunch of G Cody and I want to provide liquidity for Banco. Can I do that?
100%. So what you could do it a few different ways. So Glenn, switch back over to sell. If you want to provide liquidity, you can do it a couple of different ways. It depends on what your intention is, right? Do you strictly want to sell your G Cody and make it available for others to buy? Because if that's the case, you can create a sell order. You can name the price that you want to sell it at, and this is where others will, buy your funds. You're going to get that exact price point that you set. So what you quote is what you receive. Glenn, switch it over to range for me. So now, Soren, if you say, I want to provide it between this range. So as it starts going into this sell range, say the market is going up now, I want to start selling my G Cody. Then others, as the market moves up, then that G Cody will sell. Can you see it clearly, or do you want Glenn to zoom in a little bit more?
No, I see it.
Yeah. So you could do all of your liquidity at one specific price point, or all of your G Cody. You can provide it at one specific price point to sell. You can provide it within a specific range to sell, and this is custom. So whoever is providing these funds, if you're providing this G Cody, then you name the exact price parameters that you want to sell your G Cody.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is super interesting because we do have a lot of US users coming into the Cody treasury ecosystem for the first time, and they're obviously going to be looking for G Cody in order to boost their APYs, and we need to make sure this gets out loud and clear that there are places to buy them. And I'm sure there are people sat with Cody. I mean, they're not going to want to sell at these prices, but they can then put in a sell order at, say, 15 cent or 10 cent or some other silly amount, 50 cent, whatever they want. Yeah. That's possible, right?
Well, and that's the other thing too. So with Carbon DeFi, even though, like, say you want to sell your G Cody for Cody, if somebody is like, this is difficult, I don't really know how to price this out, you know, it's quoted in Cody and I'm confused, right? Minnesota, you're a new user, right? Like, it took me so long. Everyone's like, just measure everything in sats. And I'm like, I do US dollars. This is confusing for me, right?
I tried to do this. I tried to do this and I had an error come up. It said, you're not doing it in the right direction. I had the direction reversed. So I had some error message underneath there.
So what you can also do then, if there is G Cody and USD, you're not obligated. Like in an AMM, you're using a specific pool. It depends on the pool depth, right? Glenn, and maybe you can go into this a little bit more, but like if Minnesota is like, this is confusing for me, or, you know, I want to just buy G Cody with US dollars or like USDC, right? The ARB Fastlane, the infrastructure that Bancor has set up on the back end will route these different orders. There are different modes. It'll look at these different orders and it'll arbitrage all of these to fill the order. So even if somebody isn't providing their funds in G Cody USDC, as long as it's possible and they can, Glenn, how can I say this without getting too technical?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to buying with a stable coin, that's something that most people certainly want to do, just because people tend to denominate their strategies in a stable coin, right? So for example, like we have this trading pair here, which is G Cody against Cody, because these are probably the only two tokens on Cody at the moment that have some sort of liquidity, or potentially have holders that have these tokens available, right? So in the future, once, for example, Cody has potentially some bridging providers, maybe like Layer 0 or Axelar or one of these folks, right? You will most likely have a stable coin that you can choose from here, right? So whatever that would be, maybe like a USD something, USDC, USDT, right? At that point in time, you can come here, right? And then just say, I want to buy G Cody with a stable coin, right? And then switch over to that stable coin here, right? And that way, you'll have an easier time, I would say, in terms of being able to understand what this strategy is doing, because right now this strategy is denominated in Cody. So it's a little bit weird, right? Because G Cody, it's let's see, G Cody right now it's at 0.014, Cody's at 0.06, right? So Cody's about like 4 times point something more valuable than G Cody. Right. So what you can see here, for example, in this UI, what we're saying is that down here, this is the US dollar pricing, right? So we have the pricing set here that 9% above all the way up to 13% above. So this range starts roughly at 9% above the current market price. And it's going to start selling at 9% above the current market price, which is somewhere about 0.016, right? And then it ends selling all the way around. Well, you can move this over, right?
That's an easy way to do it too, Glenn, what you're showing right now. Right?
So this is roughly like 20% above the current market price. So you're starting to sell at 9% above the current market price, all the way up to 20% above the current market price. So this line here, this line that's in gray with a white box around it, this is like currently where the market is at for this, right? So as this starts to go up into your sell range, right, you're selling that G COTI back for COTI, right? But like I said, you're selling it for COTI because you're denominating this in COTI. If there was like a US dollar, stable coin on the COTI blockchain,
and you just do it in dollars.
Yeah, you can just flip that to like that dollar stable coin or whatever other like stable coin there might be, because it might not necessarily be the case that there might be more than one fiat backed stable coin on COTI, and one of those might be a US dollar, but you might be someone that's in like in Europe, and you would like to actually have a European backed stable coin for denominating your strategies in, right? So whichever one you choose, that's something that you'll be able to do once we have those assets available on the COTI blockchain.
I think bottom line is really, if you want to sell your G COTI for USDC and USDC is on COTI, then that's how you create your strategy. And if there is any other USDC liquidity, if there's G COTI liquidity or COTI liquidity, whichever tokens are involved in that, then the infrastructure that we have or Bancor has set up on the back end is going to match all of those orders. It's going to do order to order. So really, it shouldn't be too much of a concern for you. That's kind of one of the nice things about Carbon DeFi is you can create whatever sort of pairing you want to. You're not obligated to stick to a pool that you have to provide your liquidity at. You can choose whichever tokens you'd like. And as long as that liquidity is on the chain, is on the network, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, if a whole bunch of community members now go and put sell orders for their G COTI, we now have a bit of liquidity in it. The prices may be higher or about the same as they are today, or whatever the case may be. But if the community actually goes and uses this, there will be liquidity available for those who want to buy G COTI.
Yeah, someone could have a sell order for G COTI on Carbon, which gets posted on chain. And someone else can come in here and do the opposite, right? They might want to have, buy G COTI, right? So what happens behind the scenes, if those prices like overlap, let's say you're selling for $1, someone is buying for $1, then those orders will just get matched against each other. Right. So that's one way to think about it. The other way to think about it is if you're advertising G COTI for sale, someone can always look at the order book, right, on spot, and then they can be like, okay, actually, you know what? I think this is a good sell price. I'm just gonna buy from this person directly, right?
Glenn, go to Explore.
Sure.
Will you go to the strategy cards? So you could see that some people were actually experimenting with this. Okay, I want to kind of get to know the protocol a little bit. What sort of strategies can I create? How can I trade my COTI for G COTI? So, we'll go over the concentrated liquidity in the beginning. Scroll down a little bit for me, Glenn. Okay, so right there in the middle, you can see that single green line. That's a limit order to buy. That's what that looks like. Then to the left of it, we'll get into that a little bit. But you could see that people are experimenting. They're wanting to create these different types of strategies to either buy or sell their G COTI with their COTI. And this you can go to at any point in time and kind of look and see where are people, how are they trading these tokens? And you could just search one, really, because you could pair it against anything.
Right.
Then right there on the left, go back up for me. Right there, you can see strategy. Oh, you can't really see the ID number. But that big red section there, we were talking about the ranges. They are selling within that entire range.
Right. So the difference here, you can have a limit order, which buys or sell at a specific price. But you can also sell within a range, and the range might be useful because you might not know what the top or bottom is, right? So
nobody knows what the top or bottom is.
Right. Let's
you
say
you do, you're mistaken. It is so few and far between, and I don't think anybody really knows. So, Glenn, you're being nice, saying not many, but it's like
it gives you.
Go ahead.
It gives you just more flexibility. Because, for example, let's say you want to sell GCOT starting, I don't know, let's say at $1, right, all the way up to like $2, right? So you can do this with like a range order. If in the future, let's say GCOT goes up to maybe like $2 or something like that, right? Or even more, right? You don't necessarily miss on selling out the top, right? Because let's say, for example, you might have a limit order that sells at like maybe $2 at exactly like $2. And maybe the price of GCOT only went up to like $1.99, right? So you miss selling by 1 penny, right? But if you had a range order that started selling at $1 all the way up to $2, then this means that the majority of your GCOT would have been sold as the market price started to go up in your range, right? All the way from $1 to $1.99. So the vast majority of your GCOT would have been converted, except for maybe like a small amount, maybe like that 1%, right? That never sold because the market price never got to $2. It only got to $1.99.
Well, think about it. I mean, I was here for the last bull run, right? I don't know how many of our viewers or you guys up here, and I won't put you on the spot. You don't have to admit it. I admit it all day long. I was a sucker who was like, I'm going to sell all of my this at this price. And, then all of a sudden I got a little greedy and I put that off a little bit. And then it never hit that price. And guess who held it all the way back down? If I had created a range order and said, I'm just going to start at this price and go up to this price, I probably would have caught quite a bit of that, but I didn't. I chose one single price point, and the limit order serves its purpose. There are different reasons why you would have a limit order as opposed to the range order, but the range order is for users like me or Minnesota, where you're not quite sure at what price you really want to sell at. You have a general idea, but you're going to start scaling in or scaling out of a position. How far is this pullback going to be? I'm going to start buying at this, and maybe it'll go down to my ideal target price, which is this.
I guess it's also like that's the risk-seeking person, right? And like, oh, there's always a little bit more left in it for me. I'm one of them, by the way, Jen. So I'm fully in your follow it up and follow it down. But there's also like for other people who just want to have a more profitable strategy, you get the risk-averse people who just sell something too soon. So actually having a range order rather than a limit order, it often in the context of a risk-seeking person, you might catch 99% of the move and miss 1%. But for a risk-averse person who would have sold too early, you actually capture a lot more of the move. And I mean, you're essentially kind of doing it in the background in an automated way. While you can be watching the NFL, you can be maximizing your returns when you're a risk-averse person, right?
100%. And this is what professional traders do too. They'll create limit orders, but they create dozens of limit orders to mimic what Carbon DeFi is doing behind the scenes, right? They'll stack these up as like ladder them, right? To create this sort of range. Instead, on Carbon DeFi, you are literally just naming the starting and the end. And on the back end, what the protocol is doing is breaking this down into all of those limit orders so that you don't actually have to. Tracer, were you going to say something?
Yeah. So on the last screen there, I saw that those are all active trading strategies, correct?
Yes. Some of these are active, correct. So some of these you can see like they have very small budgets, but they have traded a couple of times, right? So some of these have traded 7 times, etc.
Now this is not just generated from you. This is like these are active strategies from other users, correct?
Yeah, it could be like some of this could be like generally some of us could be testing this, but it could be anyone. Like it could
Glenn doesn't even have his wallet connected. So these
I don't have a wallet. So right,
this is everybody.
Yeah, so this could be tests, or it could just be actually people just experimenting around with a strategy.
Yeah, no, I saw that he wasn't
I think I
connected,
set
but I
up one
didn't
of
know if
those.
these strategies were maybe buffered somehow. So why did Carbon decide to keep these strategies, viewable by everybody? Because a lot of people are all worried about with DeFi, they're worried about MEV, right? So this is like the other side of that where
So Carbon DeFi is immune to sandwich attacks. If you create an order, and this comes back to the actual technicals of it, like when I said that Bancor went back to the drawing board and said, what, I mean, that's probably one of the most, if not the most predatory attacks in DeFi, right? Other than, of course, hacking and phishing and things like that, right? But MEV sandwich attacks, I mean, I've written about this so many times. Because on an AMM, there are 2 tokens per curve. You can do that front running, follow it up with the back running, and force that price into push that price up so that basically you got a victim and you got somebody who profited big on that, right? Carbon DeFi, instead, there's 1 token per curve. So this is when you start to get a little bit more technical, but essentially, long story short, is it's impossible to perform a sandwich attack on any of these orders on Carbon DeFi. So you can look at this price. What you can do is say, okay, somebody's going to sell their G Cody at, I don't know, 24. I'm going to put my price at 23. But that's not a sandwich attack. All you're doing is creating a more competitive price, right? It's the same thing. This is kind of where it comes back with eBay. Oh, okay, everybody's selling their PlayStation 5 at $500. I'm going to sell mine at $475. But you're not forcing anybody to take a trade they don't want to.
We talk a lot about order book spoofing, right? Here, I'm assuming you can't really spoof these strategies, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. So these strategies, once you create a strategy on Carbon DeFi, that strategy, you essentially get an NFT that represents your strategy, your position, right? The tokens that you have, they get posted on chain either for buying or for selling, right? So at that point in time, anyone can actually take your order or fill that order, right? So it's not like you're creating like fake strategies or fake orders without any underlying liquidity behind them, right? That liquidity must leave your wallet and then it gets posted on chain for anyone to buy or sell.
And the amount of tokens that leave your wallet, you get an NFT in return, yeah. So that in case you cancel the order,
yeah. So
the swap goes back the other way, yeah.
Correct. So the NFT is your underlying representation of your strategy, which is composed of orders, right? So if you had an order,
it's almost like your receipt.
Yeah. So if you had an order that was like, I'm gonna sell my COTI or my G COTI. Maybe I want to sell this for like a stable coin, right? And then you put some amount of COTI or G COTI tokens for sale. That NFT lets you do a few things, right? It lets you cancel that strategy, in which case you can withdraw all the underlying tokens that you put up for that order. You can also edit your strategy if you had, for example, a certain price or a price point that you are looking to buy or sell at. Maybe you decided I'm going to modify my buying or sell price points. You can do that via the NFT, right? You can also potentially like transfer ownership of that NFT to another wallet, right? And then obviously that other wallet now controls the underlying liquidity plus the buy and sell price points, right? So these are all like the things that you can do with that NFT. But essentially, the NFT is what represents your orders on Carbon DeFi.
So why deploy this on V2? We talk a lot about garbled circuits and privacy technology. So why is this deployed here? Like, what is the advantage?
Glenn, I can answer this a little bit. So I was talking about the sort of the behind the scenes infrastructure that Bancor has integrated with Carbon DeFi, right? It serves as its own standalone product, but it's also a big part of Carbon DeFi, and that's the ARB Fastlane. So this is Bancor's arbitrage infrastructure, and this is what I was talking about with doing a lot of this order-to-order fulfillment if there are other DEXs that wind up on Cody, then we'll take their liquidity and use that to fill orders on Carbon DeFi as well. So it'll aggregate all of that. Cody V2 really came into play with the ARB Fastlane. So this has been a major project with Bancor, huge research that went into it, optimized. I mean, I think it's the most advanced arbitrage infrastructure in DeFi currently, but it was immune to MEV sandwich attacks. So where Carbon DeFi at the foundation level was already immune to these, there were certain ways that the ARB Fastlane was more susceptible to different sorts of attacks. And that's where the garbled circuits really came into play. Was now this isn't as obvious, this isn't right here on chain for others to see and kind of front run the ARB Fastlane, because it's performing a lot of infrastructure. And even though it's fast and it's, whatever it happens to be, there are still those ways that it can be taken advantage of, or it could have been. Not necessarily taken advantage of, but exploited in a way, front run, back run, where it can't be now on Cody.
I really love the visualizations of those trading strategies. It's really cool to see it like that. And just looking how you said, like this one's a limited order where it's a straight line. And then you see the spreads between the buys and sells there. It's a really neat way to look at things. Super cool.
Thank you. And Jan agreed. Thank you, Jan. I'm glad you're enjoying it also. Soren, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, because there's actually, and this is more relevant than ever, we've been sort of sloshing around this 6 to 10 cent area for Cody since I was a teenager. And you guys have a range. So you guys have a way to, if I wanted to put a strategy in that I buy between 6 and 7 and I sell between 9 and 10.
Yeah.
You have a way to back test, and I love this feature. I think this is one of the best parts of this platform. So you have a feature where we can back test it for a year and see how that would have done. Yeah.
So as long as that token has history up to a year, then what Bancor has created, and it's here available on the Carbon DeFi UI, is the simulator. This is a back testing tool pulling real historic data that users can go in. They can pair any of these two, standard tokens that they'd like to pair, and they can either choose a concentrated liquidity position or a recurring strategy. And this is the sort of strategy or trading cycle that Soren was speaking about.
Can I do this only with Cody, Jen, without?
This is available anywhere there's a Carbon DeFi, like Bancor has deployed Carbon DeFi. So this is available on Cody, Ethereum, Say, and Celo.
Yeah, but right now we're comparing Cody with G-Cody. If I want to do it, Cody to USDT, which is what most people look at on Binance or whatever platform they have,
Glenn, are you able to go to Ethereum quickly? Can you switch to Ethereum, or you could do it right here on Cody? I'm not sure.
If not, we can do it. We can do it with one. We can do it with any token. I just want people to see how amazing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, let me switch over to the Ethereum instance. I can run a simulation. So Ethereum, let me see. Cody is an ERC.
There is Cody liquidity on Carbon DeFi on Ethereum.
I think we have pricing data. It's the problem on Ethereum.
Maybe not.
Right.
Okay, there might not be a lot of pricing data on
maybe
Ethereum.
Maybe USDT, Glenn.
Yeah. Let me try USDT.
While you do that, I'll explain the recurring a little bit.
Okay, this is promising, right?
That's G-Cody.
This is G-Cody.
Is that what you wanted?
But no, it gives you like an idea of what you can do. You might be able to do potentially in the future, right? So, for example, we have a stable coin, right? We have G-Cody, and then obviously you can see the price right now is 0.014 for G-Cody. In terms of like US dollar. This is correct because I just looked at CoinGecko, right? What you can say here is I want to sell my G-Cody, for example, starting at a price of 0.015. I'm just going to fix that, and maybe all the way up to 0.017, right? So 15 to 17 cents, right? And what I want to do is I also want to buy G-Coty, maybe at a price of, let's say, 0.137. Let's just make that even, 0.137 all the way down to 0.13. 0.013. So this is my buy range. This is my sell range, right? So what I'm doing here is I can say I'm gonna put up maybe 100 USDT, and this is what I'm gonna be using for buying G-Coty when it goes into this lower range here, right? And perhaps I'm gonna also put up for sale 100. Let's just do 1,000 G-Coty, which is about $15.
You don't have to, though.
Right.
And before Glenn moves on, I just want to point that out. So even though you are buying low and selling high, I'm going to bring it back for a second, Glenn. What he's doing here, this is what Soren was talking about, was you're able to create this sort of strategy where you can buy low and sell high, but you're not just doing it once. You're creating this cycle of buying low and selling high. So anytime you buy low, those tokens that you acquire automatically rotate to fund your sell order. When you sell high, those tokens that you acquire automatically rotate to fund your buy order. So it is automating this cycle for you depending on the prices, the tokens, obviously, that you want to pair, and the prices that you're putting in there. One question that we do get really quickly is because you are constantly, I mean, ideally, you want to constantly be buying and selling, right? There are no fees on filled orders. So when you are creating this strategy, you're paying that network gas fee. And Cody is super cheap, by the way. I don't know if anybody's realized that, but super cheap. So
Way too cheap.
You're paying this network gas fee, barely, I mean, anything. And for as many times as your orders are filling and you're buying low and you're selling high, the strategy maker, whoever is behind this creation, is not paying any of those fees. So you'll pay the small fee if you want to go in and edit or something of that sort, but you're not paying any of these trading fees or network gas fees or anything of the sort. So I just wanted to point that out. And with this, bringing this back is you don't have to fund both your buy order and your sell order. If you're not quite sure where the market's going and you want to, just to be sure, then you can. But if you're saying, you know what, I don't have G-Coty, I only have Cody, you can only fund the Cody side. And once you acquire that G-Coty, it automatically rotates into your order. So you're essentially able to preset a trade with funds you don't yet have. Minnesota, you have a question?
Yeah, is there a profit taking mode?
So
exactly.
So this is something that may or may not be in the works, you know. Actually, I encourage anybody, this might be a fun one. We just got done with Vibe Cody. I would love to challenge somebody to maybe build one of these agents on top of Carbon DeFi. There were a couple of different ideas that I had that I know maybe some users might like to see. And this would be one of them where you can have an agent go ahead and take these profits out. Now, obviously, if you're leaving them in, you're auto compounding those. So you're going to be getting much more, you know, like your profit at the end of the day will be higher.
Yeah.
Right. But when you go in and edit a strategy, what you can do at that point also, and you get notifications and stuff, you could see your entire history. You can see what you've gotten. You don't have to cancel all of this and withdraw all of your funds. The same way you can add additional funds throughout your strategy when you're editing, you can go in and withdraw partial funds as well. So if you're like, oh, okay, I just acquired, you know, however many G-Coty, I'm going to put those in this separate wallet or in this separate whatever. I don't want to sell those. I don't want to, you know, then you can go ahead and do that. You can withdraw those without canceling your entire strategy.
Plus, if you just leave your sell at 1,000 and buy at 1,000, those just keep staying static, right? You're buying 1,000, you're selling 1,000, buying 1,000, selling 1,000.
Well, you're not naming the number of tokens that you're looking to buy and sell. You're naming the price at which you want to sell them. So if you are selling,
but you put a price of 1,000 there. You put 1,000 G-Coty there.
So this is the 1,000 here. This is the amount of Cody of G Cody tokens that you're gonna be selling,
funding it with. That's what you're starting it with.
At 0.015 all the way up to 0.017, right? So this is just the quantity of G Cody you're gonna put up for sale, right?
Yeah.
Down here.
And you don't have to. You can just put in Minnesota. You can just put in $100 and say, this is my buy and sell strategy.
Yeah.
Set it up, let it run, come back in 6 months, and take your $27 profit or whatever that may be,
right,
on your $100.
So
right.
Yeah,
really,
because what you can do with this now, you've set your parameters. You can go back and say, what would have been my profit for the last 12 months? Yeah.
Awesome.
Right, Jen?
Awesome.
yeah. So let's do that. So this is the simulator. You can go back. So now the strategy that Glenn created, what would he's doing it. Okay, no, he did it for the last month. So from March to April, yeah, you can see the dates up top underneath the token pair. From March to April, if Glenn had been running this strategy on Cody, he would be up 6.16%.
Yeah,
Awesome.
this is on G Cody, right? The G Cody USDT trading pair. Keep in mind that I ran this strategy on Ethereum because Cody, the blockchain, does not have stable coins, but hopefully those are coming soon. Then you'll be able to run those on the Cody blockchain, right? We ran it for 1 month. We chose our 2 ranges for buying and selling, right? At the end of this, simulation, this is how many tokens I would have, right? Roughly.
So Glenn, you started with 1,000 G Cody. Now you have 1,340.
Right,
and then you started with 100 USDT. He has about 102.
Right, and most of your balance here is in USDT, right? 83%. You have roughly 17% in G Cody, right? But if we look at your gains, right? Let's say we denominated everything in USDT because this is a strategy that's denominated in USDT. You would have roughly gained $7, right? And that is about 6% ROI in this time period.
I guess it's also worth adding that like for a lot of people in crypto, they're like 6%. Like I want to get out of bed for it, but
you're not getting out of bed for it.
Well, but over 12 months, like what Jen was, it lagged then. I missed what he said, but I think I'm glad I did.
He joked. He said, but you're not getting out of bed for it because you could just create it and automate it.
You don't have to get out of bed. It's all automated.
That is
but
true.
You're right, though. When you think about 6% in a year, Shep, maybe some people won't. But in 1 month, you can gain. And that's the other thing, too, I think, is you are creating this strategy. It's automated. You don't have to sit and watch the charts. And I think a lot of people really take that for granted. You know, when you first get into this space and you're hooked on the charts and you're constantly looking at what the prices are, it's like the last thing you do before you go to sleep and the first thing you do when you wake up this morning, and then you're cursing because you missed whatever it was you were waiting for while you were asleep for the 3 hours, you know, you weren't looking at charts. Like this has so much more value than that 6%. Now you can go and free yourself to do some other things and get back to a normal life, right?
But what if we want to get liquidated?
Also in 1 month. So there's that as well.
I think, that's what I was going to say is you've got a 12-month period there where that 6% would be compounding month by month. So like what you've got in that 6% is like your starter package.
Well, try and run it with 12 months. Let's see what it looks like. I think it'd be probably.
Yeah, we can do a year here. But I would say like if you're looking at this price chart over a year, you probably want to pick different ranges, right? Yeah. Just because obviously like you're looking at a wider range, but with the same range, right? If we run it during that time period, we probably would have only cut like down here is where most of our range is, right? So there's like no.
But if you were creating that a year ago, you wouldn't have created it at those prices. And right. This is where I think a lot of this comes into play too. Sorry, Glenn, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say when you can go in and edit the prices, when you're like, you know what, market is not looking so hot right now. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to edit my prices, and I'm going to start doing this. Now you're, changing your price points and editing this strategy 3, 4, 5 times a year. Maybe once every 2-3 months versus, having to create, like manually do all of these trades. Not to mention, Here, when you're acting as a maker and you are making the market and you're providing your funds, like I said earlier, you're not paying for all of these orders to be filled. When you're on the taker side and you're going to an AMM and you're making the swap, you are paying those fees, right? This is when you have to worry about your slippage. Minnesota, being new to DeFi, how familiar are you with slippage and MEV sandwich attacks and these sorts of things?
I know a little bit about slippage, but not the MEV attacks.
And this is what I wanted.
Yeah,
it takes away your profits.
Yeah.
And this is kind of one of the main things where, like, for this, it's kind of like you don't need to worry about slippage. You don't need to even know about MEV sandwich attacks. All you need to know is you are immune to them. You know,
so
when you're on the opposite side. Go ahead.
I have that little orange message down there on the bottom below the G Cody. That came up when I was playing around with it. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, Glenn, maybe you can, because you can see your screen better than I can.
Yeah, I can explain what this is, right? This is essentially a warning. And this means that, for example, sometimes we display it if you're selling your COTI tokens below the market price, or if you're buying a token above the market price. So let's say essentially instead of buying low, selling high, right? They're going to be buying high and selling low, which is something you definitely do not want to do, right?
Yeah, I was running into that problem messing around with it.
Right. So because we actually pull up a lot of our pricing comes from, I believe it's from CoinGecko, right? So we have a few different sources. We can pull in like real-time pricing, right? And then give you a warning when that occurs, right? So just keep that in mind. I would say when you are creating a buy or a sell order on Carbon, you're always looking at the token, the actual price points that you're selling at, right? And this gets a little bit tricky if you're denominating in something that's not a stable coin, right? For example, like we're denominating in USDT here. So this is like quite simple because we know the price of like GCOTI is like 0.014, right? But if we're denominating GCOTI against COTI, well, now that's no longer true, right? It's a ratio. And obviously the COTI is about like 4 point something more valuable than GCOTI, right? So you have to make sure that you're selecting the correct ratio based on the market price of those tokens, right? So that's what that warning is essentially. Okay. Right. So yeah, I was going to say can we what? Sorry.
Can you fix that so the warning goes away? How would you adjust that?
So in here, like the way I'm adjusting it is I'm just gonna set a price of 0, right? Or not a price of 0, I should say. I'm gonna set a quantity of 0 for GCOTI, right? So what this means is that because I was essentially selling down here, right? My sell range is below the current start price of this simulation, right? And what that means is that if I had put some COTI tokens here, when this simulation started, I would have sold those COTI below the actual market price. So that would have been against me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say I'm going to set this to 0, meaning I'm not going to put up any GCOTI tokens for sale. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to put up USDT for buying GCOTI, so that when I run this simulation, so the price is going to be up here, right? Then it's going to go into my sell range. Right, I don't have any GCOTI to sell, and that's fine. But when it drops into my buy range down here, right, I'm gonna buy some GCOTI with USDT, and then eventually the GCOTI that I bought is now gonna be made available for sale at a higher price point, right? And obviously I'm gonna buy more GCOTI. I'm gonna sell some GCOTI for USDT, and this is gonna go on throughout this entire range, right? As the price of like GCOTI is within my buy and sell range, it's going to go on forever. So we run this simulation, right, over the course of that 1 year. In this case, it would have been down 57.
That's me right there.
Right.
You know what, though? Here's the beauty of it, right? Like, not all of these are going to be pretty.
Yeah, that's definitely for us, Minnesota. That's our strategy right there.
But so many people look in DeFi, I'm marketing, right? So I can be loud and like real about this because I'm a huge, like I'm a critic of it at times. You see a lot of DeFi protocols saying you're earning fees and you're earning fees and you don't actually look at what your funds are doing and how they're being traded and what is happening with them outside of those fees that you're earning. Are the fees you're earning going to outweigh a negative 57%? Probably not, but they're not going to tell you that. This is why this tool is so valuable. It's so you can look and see what would actually happen if I were to do this. Now I know to stay the hell away from it. I don't want to go anywhere near this strategy, right? Then you can go back to simulate. You can adjust your prices. You can do what you need to do to say, okay, now I'm feeling much more confident. This is really where I want to be. And this is the sort of like money that I'm looking to make, or, you know, whatever it happens to be, right? But this isn't supposed to all be pretty.
Yeah,
it's a learning tool.
Yeah, it's a good example because obviously you do get the ability to back test over like a year. And then obviously like if that strategy didn't perform as you would have liked it to, you can always go back and adjust, right? So this is why we built this tool essentially for people that are creating these recurring strategies, these buy low, sell high strategies over long periods of time. They can essentially figure out like, okay, maybe this is a good range. Maybe this is not a good range. And then I'm going to choose whatever I think is the most optimal strategy here for trading.
Yeah, this is for all of us who don't understand technical analysis and who don't have the patience to sit and stare at charts and listen to influencers all day long. Yeah, this is a tool for us.
Yeah.
What I love about this though.
Oh, go ahead.
What I love about this though is that like I'm playing with it in my other screen here. You can actually draw the ranges and not have to input the decimal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're actually drawing this on a chart for the range, which is like, wow, beautiful UI.
Thank you so much. We didn't get to like the drawing tools and stuff, and I know we're at the top of the hour. What I do want to say, Ship, you unmuted right when Tracer was starting to speak. I didn't know if there was something that you wanted to say. I don't want to deprive you.
No, it's just very quickly. I think Sora made a point about not knowing technical analysis, but I think having a tool like that with the UI that Tracer was alluding to is you can just go back to those two ranges and start to tweak them, and you can say, okay, well, maybe I'm setting my buy order is, you know, the starting phase, starting to buy too high, and then, you know, if I can bring that buy level down closer to where it was at the bottom, then it might be more profitable. And then you can just keep repeating that process, and that iterative learning will eventually guide you to a more profitable strategy, which is something that we just don't, you know, most common DeFi users don't have access to.
No, it's so true. And this is where not having a lot of TA comes into play too, because like I said, the last cycle, I just pulled a number out of that I decided I was going to be happy with this. You know what? At this much, I'm going to pay off my house, and I'm going to this, and I'm going to this. I have no idea what the chart was telling me. I just pulled that number. You know, it reached that number and it went, and then I got greedy, you know. But for those of us that don't TA, there's a number in mind. There are certain things we want to achieve. I owe $20,000 on my car. When this token gets to this price, I'm going to sell them. I'm going to pay off my car. Doesn't matter what the chart is telling us. You know, that's the price you have in mind. And that's where these limit orders and range orders come into play too. You know, the recurring orders, like you said, you can use the simulator and you can really learn as you go. And that's super valuable. But I think all three of these really come into play, whether you are a professional trader or you're new to DeFi. You know, you don't need to know all of these nitty gritty things and these little, you know, trapped, I won't call them traps, but not necessarily out in your face sort of slippage and MEV sandwich attacks and things like that we were speaking about earlier. Glenn, I do want to bring up a comment here really quickly.
Yeah,
I've always worked with limit orders on Uniswap for the past 2 years with the Cody G-Cody pair, and the range model is a game changer for me. No more constantly shifting back and forth. We'll definitely use it in the future. So that is awesome to see. If you have any questions while you are kind of making your way around this with the range orders or whatever it happens to be, obviously any questions, please reach out to myself or reach out to Glenn. You know, reach out to the ambassadors, reach out to everybody on here. You know, if you have questions, Minnesota. Where does the name come? Is this you, Minnesota? Is this you,
Yeah,
Minnesota,
this is me.
posting your questions
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
Oh, did I? You're sweet. The name Carbon comes from, it is an anagram of Bancor. And because Bancor had created the AMM, you know, we had different versions of the AMM, and it wasn't accurate, or, you know, we couldn't call this another version. Carbon DeFi goes back to new bonding curves, totally new inventions. So it wasn't another version of anything that had previously existed. So it comes into play for a few different reasons. One is it's the anagram of Bancor. Two is Carbon represents asymmetry in nature, and this is called asymmetric liquidity. So they have that same sort of, you know, play. And then also because Mark, who is the Bancor project lead, is an organic chemist, and so it was kind of an ode to him as well, you know, Carbon. So
Sweet.
for those three reasons, the name Carbon came about.
There you go. That's for the marketing in you. That was for the marketer in you.
Thank you. I got it out of my system. Sorry, what were you going to say? And if anybody has to drop, I know that it's the top of the hour.
Yeah,
so I don't want to keep anybody if you've got other things that you need to be doing. I do appreciate all of your time.
If we are running shorter time, we may consider, if you're up for it, Jen, to do one more of these.
I would love it.
I've got a lot of questions, but mainly around, we have a whole bunch of new projects building in the Cody ecosystem. Some of those projects have tokens. And I want to try and understand if they can list their tokens on Bancor, and what is the process by which they do this. And maybe we can reserve this for our episode 2.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't even touch concentrated liquidity yet, and it's different than traditional concentrated liquidity. So this is auto compounding as well, and much more flexible. So we'll go into that, and we can go into how a token project would go about creating a liquid market on Carbon DeFi also.
Sweet.
Because I know that we had spoken to a couple of them at, you know, in Bangkok. So definitely something that we want to make sure they're aware of, and how they can fully benefit from, you know, make the most of their liquidity. That's really what this comes down to. You know, that's the lifeline for a lot of projects. So 100%.
And then we got the Tracer Jan Soren popularity contest. We need to cover that in a little bit of detail.
Oh, yes. Okay. Is Jan going to do it too? This is great. So
yeah, we're bringing him in. He's going to lose, but we're bringing him in.
He didn't know it before now.
Out. We don't want him to feel left out.
Okay. So for anybody who is unaware, we're going to, Tracer seems hesitant. I don't know. You're not feeling confident maybe, but we're going to.
I'm not scared. Not scared.
Just to clarify, set the record straight. Launch some tokens maybe and create markets, and you know, Soren turned this into a popularity contest, so we'll see. But there is more to come. Let's definitely take it offline. I'll let you guys, you know, get back to your day, but I do appreciate everything. Thank you to all of you guys for joining me. Thank you to all of the viewers as well.
Thank you for hosting us, Jen. It's brilliant.
No, 100%. Thank you guys so much. And, you know, we'll do another one where we can kind of get into the other things that you were talking about earlier, Soren.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Bancor.
Of course.
Really appreciate the walkthrough.
Definitely. Thank you. Tracer, good to have you back. We'll see you later. Bye, guys. Thank you.